Hello, and welcome to the Paranormal Operator Podcast, where we talk about all manner of things that go bump in the night. Here, we discuss sightings, investigations, news, and popular media surrounding the paranormal, supernatural, and occult phenomena. So, settle in as we search for the truth. I am your host, Adam, Operator 23. In today's mini-episode, we will be discussing Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, Season 4, Episode 7. Spoiler warning. Spoilers ahead for Skinwalker Ranch in 3, 2, 1. Season 4, Episode 7, The Return. The episode begins with Jay Stratton, a former director of the UAP task force and Travis's old boss, and Travis himself en route to the ranch. Jay was the chief of air and space warfare in the Defense Intelligence Agency and was part of the investigations with the Bigelow team there at the ranch previously. The reason for bringing Jay back to the ranch is to see if the property reacts to his presence. After arriving, Jay regales the team with some of his experiences. The first story is him spotting a UAP over the mesa. And this is kind of interesting because here he admits to inventing the term UAP for the exclusive purpose of trying to distance the phenomena with the little green men. The team has seen similar triangular craft above the mesa. Another experience is where he and two other of his teammates all saw the same object. It was in the same area of the sky, but it was not the same shape. So you had three people looking at the same thing, but seeing totally different shapes. His third story was about a temperature change. While on his way to Homestead 2, the temperature decreased noticeably, and they came to a shadow, which basically made a line across the road, which they would not cross. And the temperature inversion was so noticeable that it was like a sheet or curtain that they could actually stick their hand through. So, moreover, actually at Homestead 2, and I believe this was tied in with the temperature change as well, these guys also spotted a shadowy figure standing in the second floor window of Homestead 2. Now, for those of you that know anything about Homestead 2, you know there is no second floor. There's no roof in that building as far as I'm aware. So, if something had been standing there, well, it would have been standing there in midair. So, very interesting. And they actually, when they go out to Homestead 2, they point this out. From here, the team gives Jay a tour around the ranch, and the Jeep they're in is outfitted with an array of detectors and sensors, including GPS, gamma, and I want to say a Geiger counter. So the first stop they make is where the tree casts the shadow from his third story. And in the insider debrief, Jay stated that he did not remember experiencing fear on the job as a soldier or really anywhere, when he was doing his work, except for this particular incident. Now, as far as the temperature difference, Jay stated that it was like a wall. He also pointed out where the shadow figure in Homestead 2 was, and like I said, they point out there's no floor there. In 2020, the team observed a temperature differential in the same area as all this nonsense was going on with the temperature change, but also the shadow figure there at Homestead 2, when they had that Jewish rabbi come out and perform his prayer. So I'm sure there were other sites that they went to around the ranch. Unfortunately, though, they were edited for time. So while you get a sense that there were other places, better stories maybe, or other stories, you don't get to see them, unfortunately. The next day, without Jay, they drive the same route with the same instruments. The only difference is that Jay is not in the vehicle. And in the debrief, they actually talk about this, that every time they went somewhere, whether it was to take a break, go to the bathroom, whatever, they had it timed. So they were following the exact route down to the second. And the whole goal here was to see whether or not the instruments reacted any differently. Well, while this is going on, they cut back to Dragon and Caleb, who are meeting with Don Mitchell, the fire management officer there in the Uinta Basin. Don was there to take a look at the burnt post in the south field. So when he goes there, a couple of things. Number one, none of the foliage is burnt. There's no evidence of tracks. There's no evidence of tampering. And there's no evidence of fire anywhere else other than the post, including the fact that there is no debris below. So nothing seems to have fallen off the post. And then also, heat rises. So if the post had been in the ground when it was burnt, you would have expected to see carbon deposits or soot above the burn, and there simply doesn't seem to be any. So that was very interesting. That's not something I thought about. Although, and the guys mentioned this in the debrief, that they thought, okay, well, maybe it was a post or a log and someone was burning it, and then it didn't burn all the way through, and then some ranch guy was like, oh, well, I can take this and use it as a fence post. But Thomas, who is the ranch superintendent, he's fairly certain that is not what happened. He also states in the debrief that he maintains his position that, yes, this was relatively fresh, because he remembers going out after a rainstorm and the texture of the material was not as powdery. So it would have had to have been between rainstorms. Now, I don't know how often it rains there, but I know I've seen rain on the cameras. So another little interesting tidbit why you should sign up to be an insider. So Don was confident that the burned post was not arson. It was not a chemical burn, nor was it a lightning strike. But that it was similar, in his opinion, to a plasma cutter. And basically the conclusion that they came to was the temperature needed to do the damage on the post would be around 800 degrees Fahrenheit. So 800 degrees Fahrenheit, the stuff that was nearby should have combusted. Because that's hot. Like, that's pretty hot. So, now Don did say that as far as what caused it, it went back to what the ranch is named after. Now, he couldn't bring himself to say Skinwalker because, there's kind of a cultural taboo sort of thing. But he is of the opinion that whatever happened was, in fact, more than likely paranormal. Following this, we cut to Travis and Eric, who reveal the results of the Jay experiment. And it turns out that the ranch most definitely did respond. First off, Eric starts with displaying the control. So the second part of this experiment where they had the guys in the Jeep without Jay. And all the GPS data was fine. It made a nice little track. It was all nice and neat, all tidy, nothing was missing. And then they switch over to the data where Jay was in the vehicle, and there is, looks like, data missing. Except that it's not missing at all, because Eric turned the map, the ground level, if you will, opaque, so you couldn't see through it. So he turned the map upside down so that the view was underground and you could see the data. And it went several hundred feet underground. So, very, very interesting. Now, we've had this stuff happen before with the helicopter, where it's like, we know the helicopter didn't fly through the mesa, and it didn't fly under the ground, so what the heck? So we there have some more GPS anomalies. And the anomalies happened, or at least it started, because on most of the map it's fine, but it started going underground at around the drill site there on the mesa, and then it went down. It's almost like steps, if you will. So it comes down. It starts at the drill site, comes down. Then once they get to about the tree, what Jay was talking about, what was creating the shadow across the street, the road that they couldn't cross, it took another step down, and then at Homestead 2, it went another step way down. So, yeah, I'd say the ranch responded. So, and Travis even makes that. He even says that, and but the big question is how or why, right? How is a piece of property doing that? So they only did it once. They didn't have Jay for very long. It would have been nice if they could have drove him around several times just to see, if the results were repeatable or not. But unfortunately, they were not able to do that. So after this, they cut to the mesa. The team, they're all standing around. They're pondering how in the world they need to get into the mesa. And they come to the conclusion, again, which they did in the previous episode, that they need to get a portable drill and attempt to drill from the top of the mesa down into, or at least toward, the anomaly. I would be really happy to see this because they've been talking about it now for 2 episodes. So I hope they do it tonight, which is Tuesday. And I apologize that I didn't get this video out sooner, but I'm like a day behind because of camping, but also I got in a wreck, so I'm a little behind. Anyway, if you want to see what's left of my car, I posted pictures of it on social media. So after they resolve, again, to find a portable drill to come into the mesa, Caleb goes out to retrieve the trail cams from the south field. And upon review of the photos, they find that there is an orb or some sort of object, and it appears for 1 frame only. Now, it's very difficult to tell exactly how big it is and how fast it is moving, because there's no real frame of reference. It could be really close to the camera, or it could be, out by the tree line. If it's out by the tree line, it's pretty big. I'm not sure if they actually mentioned the size, other than it would be large. So, they find this, they bring it back to the guys, let them see it. And one interesting thing they pointed out was, so out there's 2 cameras. They're watching each other, right? And, the other camera, so camera A, I'm giving it that name. I don't know if it actually has a name or not. But camera A captures the orb. Camera B, which is watching camera A, doesn't capture anything. So that's high strangeness would be how I would describe that. How do you have 2 cameras watching each other, and presumably this object appears between the 2 of them, and only one camera capture it? I suppose it could be that it was moving so fast that the other camera just didn't catch it. I don't know. But that's weird. And something else not quite as weird was they mentioned that, something was triggering the camera, and it could be just, the foliage moving in the wind. But at any rate, they find this orb. It's silvery, possibly metallic, and it does sort of resemble the model that Travis made. So recalling the model, you had basically a sphere, and in the middle there was like a little gap, almost like a trench, and then on one end there was a black circle. And it kind of looked like it, I guess, if you were to rotate it so you were looking dead on from the side. It kind of resembled that. So the last thing about this was that Thomas brings up this orb appeared in the area or the direction of the burnt post. Now, in the debrief, they said whatever burnt this post was probably about the size of a beach ball, or like an inflatable beach ball, on the large end. So, I'm not sure if this is the thing that created the fire, and then and for anybody to say it would be pure speculation on their part as well. But what I will say is, they brought up the question of how much energy would you need. Well, thank you for that. I'm out of paper, apparently. How much energy would you need to incinerate this post, and how fast would you be able, would it have to hit the post and then move away before anything else caught on fire? Because they're speculating that about a third of the post is actually burnt away. And it's just gone. It's vaporized. It's not there on the ground, right? Like I said, they didn't find any debris. And, well, this object, if it's moving so fast that it can only be captured in one frame, just for sake of argument that it is moving, it would be moving extraordinarily fast. But let's say, for sake of argument, that it's not actually moving anywhere. Let's say that it just appears, right? It's there. Well, that has to take energy to just appear from somewhere, right? Because theoretically they would be using some sort of electrogravitic technology. They would be warping space-time. So that would take energy. Whether or not that's what's happening, I don't know. But that's just a thought. So overall, this episode, my opinion on it, there's not really a whole lot here. I was kind of looking forward to maybe a little more on the burnt post, a little more with Jay. I really wish they would tell more stories, even though it's just anecdotal evidence. You get enough people to corroborate anecdotal stuff, though, and it's got to stand for something. Though the experiment, driving them around, that was a good idea. But yeah, some people they've just kind of dismissed this episode, that it wasn't really good. I mean, you got to remember, okay, this is it's a TV series, a docu-series about a scientific investigation. It is not a scientific investigation in a TV show. So, the editors or the producer or whatever, they got to cut it up how they feel like they want to. So, yeah. It is what it is. There's not much you can do about it. However, again, I would purchase the hell out of a long form DVD that legit followed these guys, that was not cut up or edited the way the TV show is. Now that being said, Secret of Skinwalker Ranch comes on at 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock is Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and that show, the first episode of that aired last week. And basically you have these two guys, I can't remember what their names are. One of them, I think, is a journalist, and one of them is like a proper scientist. And basically what they're going to do is try to take some of the same technology that they have there at the ranch, make it mobile, and take it to other points of interest around. This last episode, they weren't that far from the ranch. And it was at another ranch, which had a bunch of, I don't know if you want to call it UFO activity so much as maybe paranormal activity. And it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was a pretty cool episode. If you have time and you can afford to stay up till 11 o'clock at night, I would definitely say go ahead, stay up, watch the show, because basically what they're doing is they're trying to find similar activity from Skinwalker Ranch, but at different places. And it's interesting. It really is. I want to say that they did find some anomalous gamma readings or radiation readings, and Travis was, he was asked about them, and he pointed out in the debrief that, well, radiation does just come up from the ground sometimes, because you got radon and different elements. As they decay, they're going to come from the ground and they're going to rise up into the air because, maybe they're lighter than air. I don't know. Because they actually have this really cool thing that you can use to see radiation visually. So not like a Geiger counter where you just hear a bunch of pops and clicks, but it's actually like a heat map. Not quite a thermal, but similar to it. It's pretty interesting. And someone said, well, why don't you guys have this on the ranch? And Travis was like, well, it's because there's not that many of these things in the world. There might only be two. I mean, honestly, this might be the instrument that they've invented, and they're like, here, go test this for us. But Beyond Skinwalker Ranch is a pretty good show. I kind of wish there was more in this season of Skinwalker Ranch. And it's editing. I understand, but I don't think people are in it because they're like, oh, what's going to happen next? They're in it because they want to see what's going on. They want to try to find answers. They want to know, is there any backing to this UAP, UFO, paranormal, Skinwalker stuff? And I wish they would stick to the science. And I wish, because you could make science interesting. There's no reason why you can't. So, that being said, again, I'm going to shill for the guys. They're doing a really good job from what I can tell. And if you want to get the backstory, you want to get the inside scoop, go to Skinwalker Ranch website and sign up to be an insider, because you get a lot more information that you wouldn't ordinarily get. You can ask questions of the team, and you get to watch. The cameras are all the way around the ranch. They have different ones that they put up every once in a while, because there's a lot of cameras, and they only put up 4 or 5 at a time, but they move them around. So you get this set of camera feeds for a while, and then you get another set of camera feeds for a while, and it's interesting. It really is. I would definitely say it is worth the money, and every cent of it that goes from the insider program goes straight back into the ranch. So Fugel is not pocketing the money, so far as I understand, and none of the ranch people or the team members are. It's going into the instrumentation. So you'd be helping to support the program and the research. And you get this nifty little ID card, as well as a T-shirt that says Skinwalker Ranch Insider, which is something you cannot buy. It is something that is issued to the members. So, folks, that's all I have for this one. My final say is it could have been better, but at any rate, I still think it's a pretty good show. And until next time, guys, keep searching in the darkness.